The agency had a word for the child: imaginative. Sarah repeated to herself as she stood in the grand, shadowed foyer of the house. It was her first time babysitting for the Millers, and the sheer scale of the place was intimidating. The ceilings were high enough to hold secrets, and every corner seemed to be draped in a permanent twilight. Imaginative. That was supposed to be reassuring, right? Then she met Elian, a pale, quiet 7-year-old with eyes that seemed much older. He was sitting on a large oriental rug in the playroom, surrounded by a legion of simple wooden blocks. He didn't greet her with a hello, just a silent, assessing gaze before returning to his work. And it was work. He was building intricate, impossible towers. Structures that spiraled and branched out, balancing in ways that seemed to mock the laws of physics. They were delicate, beautiful, and deeply unsettling. Sarah watched, mesmerized, as he placed the final block on a spire that nearly brushed the ceiling. The whole thing should have collapsed, but it stood firm, a silent wooden marvel. "Those are amazing, Elian," she finally said, trying to break the heavy silence. He didn't look up, his small fingers already sorting through another pile of blocks. "My other friends are coming," he whispered, the words barely disturbing the air. Sarah managed a bright, professional smile. "Oh? I didn't know you were expecting company. Your parents didn't mention anyone else would be here." Elian paused, his hand hovering over a small triangular block. "They don't like the light," he said, and then resumed his building, the conversation clearly over. A shiver, cool and unwelcome, traced a line down Sarah's spine. She dismissed it. He was imaginative. That's all. Kids say strange things. She spent the next few hours trying to engage him, suggesting games, reading from a book. But he was completely absorbed by his blocks, his silence a wall she couldn't seem to breach. The sun began to set, and the house sank deeper into its own shadows. The long hallways became darker, the portraits on the walls seeming to watch her as she passed. Finally, it was bedtime. Elian went without protest, another unnerving trait. He simply put down his blocks, walked upstairs, and climbed into his bed, pulling the covers up to his chin. His room was just as large and ornate as the rest of the house, with a single dim lamp casting long dancing shadows on the walls. "Good night, Elian," Sarah said from the doorway. He just blinked at her, his dark eyes wide in the gloom. "Good night," he whispered back. Downstairs, Sarah breathed a sigh of relief. The hardest part was over. She decided to tidy up before the Millers got home. She started in the kitchen, wiping down the marble countertops, the silence of the house pressing in on her. It was a heavy, watchful silence. And then she heard it. A faint sound from the playroom. Clack, clack, clack. The gentle, distinct noise of wooden blocks being stacked. Her heart gave a startled leap. Elian was supposed to be in bed, fast asleep. Had he crept back downstairs? She moved quietly down the hall, her footsteps muffled by the thick rug. She peeked around the doorframe into the playroom. The room was empty, but the blocks they were different. Elian's magnificent tower was gone. In its place, on the center of the rug, the blocks had been arranged to spell out a word. A name, Sarah H. Cold dread washed over her. This wasn't imaginative. This was impossible. She backed away from the door, her eyes wide, scanning the darkened hall. And that's when she heard the new sound from upstairs. A soft, rhythmic thud, dot, 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 thud. It was coming from the hallway, just outside Elian's room. It sounded like small, hesitant footsteps. Too slow and deliberate for a child. "Elian?" She called out, her voice trembling louder than she intended. The thudding stopped instantly. The house fell back into that oppressive, absolute silence. It stretched for a long, agonizing moment. Her own breathing was a roar in her ears. She stood frozen at the bottom of the grand staircase, her hand gripping the polished banister, her gaze fixed on the impenetrable darkness at the top. And then, from that darkness, a voice whispered back. It was a tiny, high-pitched voice, thin and reedy, and it was absolutely not Elian's. "He's asleep," the whisper echoed down the stairwell. "But we're awake." There was a pause, a chilling, playful beat. And we're so imaginative. The giggle that followed was not human. It was the sound of dry leaves skittering across pavement, of tiny bones breaking, and Sarah knew she was not alone with the child. She was alone with his friends, and they didn't like the light. Thank you so much for watching. If this story sent a shiver down your spine, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more Tales from the Shadows. Stay safe and check on the kids.